Okay, so we're gonna slow down the stuff for the rest of the term because it just feels like you guys are a little overwhelmed. So, we're just kind of bumping things down like a day, maybe two. So last time you should have done I have a dream speech thing if you didn't get on that. Today, this is what we're doing kind of in class, right? We'll talk about your choice speech and the instructions for that, and then we'll do some campaign ad analysis, which is fun. Next time we'll talk about your outline for your choice speech, because outlining will be really important to the structure of that piece. And then we'll do some more political ad campaigns that are not from the 60s, so that'll be exciting. And then you'll have a writing day to write your speech analysis, and I will poll you kind of like we did before and just talk with you about how it's going and how I can help you with stuff. And then the last day, we're going to talk about Lincoln's second inaugural address and practice on that. Your final, that was originally at the end of this term, will just be bumped to the beginning of next term. That final is another timed analysis, right? So it'll be your second one. We're going to go over your first one a little bit today and things that I noticed just generally could be improved so that you can do well on that second one. And the choice speech analysis essay will also help you on that because essentially what it is it's the same thing. You're looking at what rhetorical choices the speaker is making that then convey purpose, right? But it's in a non-timed environment, right? You get as much time as you need to do that. And so hopefully you can really work on those skills, and then when we do the timed rights, you can just apply them, but faster. So, questions on any of that? Also, all of your late work is going to be due on October 20th, so on that day following fall break. I haven't been taking off late work because phase one is the worst, and I understand that. However, if I do not get it by this day, then I cannot grade it by the end of the term, and then you will get a 0 on it, right? Simply because I can't do everything. So, not because I don't like you, but I just am human. So make sure you get your stuff in by then. Cool, questions now? Sweet, let's talk about that first time right. So I was excited, about half of you did it, so the other half of you get it together. We did pretty well, like for our first one. I think a lot of us were able to get like that structure down, which is important, and we're able to write a lot in a short amount of time, right? But I don't think that there was anyone who would be ready for the AP exam right now, which is fine, because it's like October, right? So we've still got like a bunch of months, like 7, I can count, it's fine. But we've got like 7 months to get you ready, right? But it means that you're going to want to work hard on honing your skills before then. So on the weekly overview, there's a slideshow that has kind of just like the major things that I would review before your second attempt. Because on this one, I give you full points for doing it. On the next one, that will not be the case, okay? Because it's a final, so that's how it works. So let's look at these sentences. These ones are not from this batch of, like, from your class's essays. It's from previous years because I didn't want to, like, call anyone out, right? But they are very similar to a lot of the sentences I saw in your essays. So the first one, Woolf uses tone to convey purpose in her narrative. What does that tell me about that essay?
Nothing.
Exactly. It's very fancy nothing, right? You use a lot of fancy words, but I still don't know anything about that essay. I can replace Woolf with any author ever, and it would still work, right? Because if you have words, or even pictures can create tone, you're going to have a tone, and they're going to have a purpose, right? So you want to be specific. Okay, instead of saying tone, tell me what kind of tone. Uses a nostalgic tone. Uses a lamentful tone. Use whatever the tone word is, right? But be specific about what that tone is, and then tell me what the purpose is. What is her purpose? Be specific. And that was kind of the major theme in a lot of these empty sentences, is that you could pluck it out, you could put it in any essay ever, and it would still apply. Okay, that may seem useful, but it's really not in analysis. Okay, you want to be specific. I like this one a lot. Woolf introduces her major ideas through the example example she gives, right? Okay, yeah. Be more specific. You could say what those major ideas are. What examples are you talking about? Like the examples of what? I saw this one a lot throughout the passage. Wolf uses specific diction to get the point across. If you are using words, you are using specific diction. So tell me, what are the patterns you're noticing in diction, right? Do you notice like a pattern of light and dark, words meaning light or dark, or words religious diction? Do you notice feminine diction? Do you notice medical diction? I don't know, but like find a category to apply to the diction, and then say what that point is. Okay, and then this is another one I saw a lot. The imagery makes us feel things emotionally in the passage. Ooh, okay, that's what all imagery does, right? It makes you feel emotion about something because it's very descriptive language. So specify what kind of imagery, like water imagery, because like she was writing about fishing, right? Or family imagery, or like imagery having to do with the body, whatever. And then what emotion does she make us feel? So like a sense of loss, a sense of pride, a sense of excitement. Okay. Questions on the empty sentences? Cool. Again, these are from none of your essays, so that you don't have to feel sad about it, right? But they were similar ones. So for your next essay, these are things that you should think about. First of all, look at the comments that I left you. Okay, they're not like super expansive. I think next time, one of the teachers is trying like filming herself comment, so I might try that next time to see if I can get more to you in a shorter amount of time. But I left you specific comments on your Canvas essay, so you can click on the assignment, and then there's like a little, when it pulls up the assignment, a little blue view feedback, like that video we watched going over this. You click on that, and it's got like little arrows to what I'm talking about in your essay. I also may have made like general comments on the side, like big things to focus on. So look at those, because those will help you. I don't just do them because I'm bored. And then your attack summary. So that paper that I gave you where it was like, here's how you write a thesis, here's how you write an intro, here's how you write a body paragraph with like the Peel method. You want to review that before, because if you're reviewing it during the essay A, you're not going to be able to do that when you take the exam in the spring. But B, it's like wasting your time because you're like reading and then writing, and like it's taking up some of that 40 minutes that you could be using to write and develop. I think a lot of you who struggled with structure could be helped if you really looked over that attack summary about how body paragraphs should be formatted with, here's my point, example, explanation, linking it back to my thesis, right? Or like the thesis statement, like here's the devices she uses, here is like the point she's making, right? Some of us only wrote a paragraph, which was weird because it's an essay. So next time, really try to develop right into that 4-paragraph essay at least. You also want to review your rhetorical toolbox before writing, because a lot of us didn't, I feel like, know what to write about. We didn't see things happening, like techniques that we could talk about, because we didn't remember what we talked about in class. So looking for stuff in diddles, but being specific about what kind of diction or kind of imagery. Sentence structure, you could have talked about like anapra, parallel structure, repetition. You could have talked about, like, even if you saw like similes and metaphors, right? Any of those devices are fair game. You could have talked about the emotional appeal, the ethical appeal, logical appeal, whatever. But I feel like if you review that and those techniques that we've talked about, then you'll be able to recognize them because you know patterns to look for. Because it's kind of daunting to just be given a piece and be like, figure it out, right? But you have tools and you can do this. I believe in you. If it asks you how language conveys purpose, which it will, you want to define what the author's purpose is as part of your response. So in this particular piece, it said that it asks you to write an essay in which you analyze how Woolf uses language to convey the lasting significance of these moments from her past. You wanted to identify what the lasting significance of this moment was. And some of you did that. But some of us just put in lasting significance of the moment, which is like a good first attempt, right? But what was the lasting significance of this moment for her? What do you guys think? Does anyone remember? It's kind of been a while, I guess. So she's talking about fishing, and she talks about how her dad is like, oh, I don't want to go fishing anymore because I don't like watching like the fish die. And then all of a sudden, even though she was very excited about this, she was like, oh, I don't want to fish either. But it wasn't because he like scolded her. She just like was like, oh, yeah, like if he doesn't want to do it, it made her reflect on her own excitement about killing these like fish, right? And then she talks about at the end how she says, from the memory of my own passion, I'm still able to construct an idea of the sporting fashion. Is one of those invaluable seeds. And so she talks about how you have like these little seeds of choices that you could have made that don't actually come to fruition, but that you can go back and explore that like in your mind. So you could talk about how like the purpose was talking about how mortality is sad in some ways because you have to make choices which then cut off other avenues of the future for you, right? But at the same time, even little experiences with it, you can then experience later in your mind, right, as you relive these memories. So it's kind of like a bittersweet realization about humanity and like the mortal condition. Right? This was a very challenging piece. I'll be honest, like I would have been scared to write something about this in 40 minutes. So kudos to you for doing it, the attempt, and it was difficult. And hopefully this is one of the more difficult pieces that you will see on the exam, but we do need to like really work on our skills and remembering our rhetorical toolbox so that we have things to say about the piece. So notice I'm talking about specific rhetorical devices, so the more names that you have in your head, the better that's going to go. Name the pattern, not just diction. You can say things like patterns of light and dark, or ethereal, or angry, or detached. Those are kind of tone words too. Pull multiple examples from the text to support what you're saying. Most of us could get like one quote in a paragraph, but you should have multiple. So if you're talking about diction, you're talking about patterns of like light and dark, pull a lot of words that are light and then show the contrasting dark. You can talk about the juxtaposition of those patterns of diction. Pull a lot of angry words, so like he uses this, and then talk about like all of those. So that you're showing it's not just like one thing you happen to find in there, but it's a pattern, and that is helping to convey her purpose. Handwrite response. So some of us typed it, but you don't want to do that because then you'll get to the exam in May. If you have to handwrite it, your timing is going to be completely off because you're used to typing, and that goes faster than handwriting. So you want to handwrite, and if they decide in the spring to do what they did last year, then you're just like better for it because now you have more time because you're used to handwriting, and now you can type up, and that's going to go faster for you. So again, I didn't take any points out this time, but make sure that you handwrite it the next time. And when you do handwrite it, take a clear picture of it when you upload it, or just bring it in. Mary did that, and I was able to grade that, like just give it back to her. But some of us took pictures like this, which made it difficult for me to see because it was like bent or blurry. And so make sure it's in a well-lit area, flat, clear, so I can read it. Do not editorialize about the quality of the text. Talk about what choices the writer is making and how well they do it. Okay, what that means is some of us were like, she writes really well. It's like, I'm sure that she would feel nice knowing that you think that, right? Like, or like, she uses imagery really effectively, right? Again, those are like, that's nice, but that doesn't actually talk about how choices are conveying her purpose. And the fact that it's like on the AP exam shows that it's good writing, so you don't need to like tell them it's good writing or that she's doing it well. Like, she doesn't need that for her self-esteem. So just focus on the choices that she's making and how that conveys her purpose in the piece. And then, yeah, watch out for those empty sentences. So again, this is available on the weekly overview, so you can look at it there. Yeah, Jeff.
Can I use the bathroom?
Sure. So you can look at it there, like all of those things before you take your next one if you want to review that. Any questions about your time, right? Okay. I'm excited for round 2. I think you guys are gonna kill it. Choice speech annotation assignment. So, basically, you'll click on the assignment. It says, please print out a copy of your choice speech, and following the steps on the page below, so this link, you're gonna annotate it. And when you thoroughly annotate it, you're gonna take a clear picture and submit it. If you're not able to upload it, like the picture thing is like too confusing for you, just bring it in so I can look at it and check it off. But I don't want you to turn it in, because I want you to have it so you can then write your paper on it, right? So you want to keep those annotations. Let me find, maybe it's down here. Here it is. So this is what that paper looks like on that assignment. It has like a step-by-step guide to success in your annotations. So the first step is, of course, picking a speech, right? So you can go to AmericanRhetoric.com, and it's got a bunch of speeches from American history. You don't have to pick something from America. You could pick like Hitler, or, I mean, that sounds not very positive. Maybe Nelson Mandela has some good stuff. But that is just like an easy place where there's a lot of speeches for you to go to. You want to make sure that the speech you pick is not too long and not too short. There's kind of like a sweet spot. So the ones that we've been picking have been like 4-ish pages maybe. And so you kind of want to hit that same sweet spot from like 3 to 6 pages, because shorter than that, there's not as much to talk about. Longer than that, there's too much to talk about. So it's like the Goldilocks principle. As you're reading through and selecting it, look, like as you're glancing over it, like, are there things I can talk about? So if you're noticing tons of like anaphora and repetition, or you're noticing imagery being used, like that might be a good speech to do, because you're already noticing choices that they're making. Okay. Research the context of the speech next. So you want to think about like the rhetorical situation, right? And like, why was this speech created in the first place? What situation was it given in? Who's giving it? Who's the audience? What's going on in history at that time? So like with the I Have a Dream speech last time, we had like this big civil rights push, right? And Martin Luther King Jr. is a reverend, so that would have been important to know, because he uses a lot of religious allusions and imagery. They marched from the Washington Monument to the Lincoln Memorial. So when he says, "In whose symbolic shadow we stand today," he's referencing Lincoln there, so you want to know where they are. They only expected 100,000 people, and yet they got 250,000 people. So it's very crowded. It's also in August in DC, so it's very hot. And some of the things that he's talking about in that speech have to do with like the sweltering heat of oppression and things like that. So he's kind of capitalizing on like, you know how you're feeling hot right now and that's uncomfortable? Like, that's how our oppression is, right? Like, don't be like that. So you'd want to think about just kind of what is going on in that history. If you're getting it from a book, what is the context of that speech? Right? So stuff that happens like before it, stuff that's kind of happening after, or movie, same deal, stuff that's kind of before, after. So you could do that. Then you want to read through your speech and kind of chunk it into major sections, because as you're speaking, you're kind of making multiple points throughout, so you can see that as you chunk it in the speech. Look for any tonal shifts, because that'll show like a different point being made. And then you want to really dig in and do a section by section analysis. So you're looking at each section, all of the major choices that are being made, taking notes on how they're made, so just like you've been annotating on your other stuff, thinking about the order of these choices and the sections. These are some possible major choices, so things like allusion, analogies, patterns definitely, the order of presentation, parallel structure, anaphora, any of the appeals. Juxtaposition is big, so taking one thing and really contrasting it with another. So look for those things in your speech. These are also things that you could talk about in your timed analysis essay. So the more that you look for them in this speech will help you recognize them in a faster context, right? Questions? Okay, so you'll just annotate the crap out of your speeches, and then you will upload it so that we can talk about outlining next time. Okay, and this is really the only homework that you're gonna have this week. So they should be like, just like torn apart. They're so analyzed. Okay? Okay, cool. Go team. Today we're gonna have some fun, and we are going to watch some old political ad campaigns, which I'm like, they're kind of crazy. They're kind of trippy sometimes, so it's gonna be fun. So I want you guys to pull out your Chromebooks because there's a paper that you're gonna fill out as we watch it on Canvas. It's a living room candidate analysis part 1 assignment. So you can either get that from the module for this week under the weekly overview, or you could just click on it in assignments. And it will pull up, it'll say, do you want to make a copy of the document? And you do. I've had some issues doing what was called like a Google Cloud assignment, where we just kind of pulled it in. Some people, it was being fluky on there, so we're going to try it this way and see if we can prevent more of those flukes from occurring. But it should pop up and look like this when you click on the link. But did you look at my comments for some? I probably told you either it didn't work or I can't remember exactly right now, but usually if it's a 0, it just means I can see it. So I'm sure you did get it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just make sure, because you might just need to like share with me so that I can view it. It may not have submitted. So yeah.
I'll check your numbers.
Okay, we good? Okay. So we're gonna look, this site is called the Living Room Candidate. And we're looking at these ads because AP wants you to be able to analyze not just literature and like text, but also like a visual text. Why would it be important to be able to analyze a visual text, such as the political ad campaign? Graham, what do you think? Why would AP want you to be able to analyze a visual text?
Probably just so that like they know that you can. I mean, I feel like that's a really important part of life, because I think there's a lot of like videos that we watch for like advertisement and finance information and stuff. So.
Right, yeah, I mean like all the social media is pretty visual, right? So it would be important to know when you're being manipulated or what messages they are putting into your brains and being an informed consumer. So this applies a ton to you guys and like just your normal life. And then especially with like political ads and stuff, like they're trying to get you to vote for someone, which is an important decision. So you want to make sure that like you're not being biased by things that they're doing. So being aware of the choices and decisions that these people are making as they put this together. Okay, so on that paper, the first one we're going to look at is is from 1968 and the campaign between Nixon and Humphrey. This ad is by Nixon, but talking about Humphrey. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch it once, just enjoy and like look at like the first like initial choices we notice being made, and then you can talk about like that initial close reading. So anything that you notice, overall impression. The rhetorical situation of this is that it's the election year, right? And these two candidates are trying to be elected. And then other things you'd want to know, 1968, which war is going on during this time? Vietnam, right? So I put Vietnam. It's a very controversial war. Lots of people don't think we should be fighting it. It's also taking place within the greater context of which like non-war, Cold War, right? So that would be something else that we would want to note in the context of this rhetorical situation. Okay, so enjoy. This ad is like the one of the weirdest ads I've ever seen. Here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That is
I feel
so
like-
weird.
I feel like my soul has been like damaged a little.
Because of a horror movie.
What do you think? First off, what are some choices we should notice? What's going on? Initial impressions. I mean, we heard what the heck, so which is, you know, kind of my initial impression as well. But what choices do you notice right off the bat that are being made? Yes, Lily.
Whenever they show the candidate, it's always like happy, joyful music. And then when it goes into showing like war and bad things, it gets like freaky and wobbly. And
Like alien, like the old school alien type music, or like, why do you think they do that? Why is he like all happy? And that's Humphrey, right? He's running for president. But then all like these other images, why are they discordant versus his happy face? Yes, Mariah.
What I got from it was he kind of looked happy and like cheerful when everybody, like the rest of America, was dying and like in wars and stuff.
Okay, good. And why would that be a bad thing?
because you don't want that.
Yeah, you don't want him to be all happy when everyone is dying, right? So this is by the Nixon campaign, I believe, right? It's Humphrey versus Nixon. I always forget. Yes. So then why would Nixon portray him happy? Like, wouldn't like happy be like a good attribute for a candidate to have? Okay, good. So he's happy despite all of this fallout, right? His face is like there, and then it's discordant, and then it's showing pictures of war, right? Of the Vietnam War specifically, and people suffering, right? It shows like people. It looks like almost in like the Midwest who are like poor and suffering, and none of them are smiling. Who's the only one smiling? Humphrey, right? And that seems pretty insensitive, right? What else do you guys notice going on? What does that music sound like? The happy music. The discordant one sounds like bad.
It's like patriotic.
It's like, yeah, kind of patriotic, right? I kind of get like this like fairground kind of vibe, maybe circusy, right? So he's happy, he's like circusy, and yet people are suffering. So that's called juxtaposition, right? So we get that in the music as well. Anything else you guys notice right off the bat? Okay, let's watch it again, and this time pay attention to like when the images are shifting, how they're shifting, and any other of the choices that you notice being made. I'm sure you're excited to watch this again. So, what do you notice this time, this go around about choices being made? Yeah, Matt.
I think just like overall, he's like associating himself with like good and like him being proud of his country, and then he associates Humphrey with everything like evil, death, and war.
Yeah. So, definitely getting this vibe that like, hopefully the other guy isn't like this. He's showing all of the bad stuff going on in the country, and then associating that with Humphrey. Hello?
It didn't just show him looking to be happy about all the bad things happening. After it showed like some of the happy images of just like little boys smiling and stuff like that, it showed him like frowning and looking kind of disgusted at it,
Okay. Why do you think that that's important?
just to make people think he doesn't care about like the citizens and the families.
Okay, good. Yeah, like you just look like kind of like, whatever, I don't really care. Or really happy about it. When did the discordant music first start? So it starts out with like the circusy whatever. When does it start to be like whatever, shaky? Do I need to show you again?
Yeah.
It's on like the first negative clip.
So here's still when does it start? When his face shows up, right? And then they make his face all like kind of like, you're like, well, what the heck is going on? You almost look like his head is like turning, right? Kind of like what are they, like possessed person, right? Which is bad. So they make, like, it all starts out happy, and as soon as you see his face, you get this bad vibe, right? Because the music is creating this bad vibe. The visual thing is disturbing, right? It's very disturbing. And then, after that, they start showing the bad music anytime they show, like, America, but then he seems kind of peppy and stuff, and that seems pretty insensitive. Any other choices you noticed being made? Yeah, Lily.
When it was just showing him, like they'd have like little sound effects you'd imagine like a cartoon back in that day.
Okay.
Or like the way they moved the camera made it look like it was almost whimsical.
Yeah, and why make him whimsical?
I guess to show that he's not serious about this.
Yeah, and at the end, he even like he has his hand kind of raised there. What does that look like he's doing?
Leaving me.
Yeah, he's kind of like conducting this whole shenanigan, right? He's just like up there and he's conducting all of this crazy bad stuff that's happening. Doesn't look like he's care. Very cartoony, like you said. Good. Someone else was like, it kind of looks like Hitler. I feel like that's not quite high enough for like a Hitler high, but like, I mean, I'm sure that the makers of this ad would not be sad with that association. They would want you to think that he's a terrible person. That's fine. Any other thoughts about this ad? Okay, let's look at that last question on your paper. It says, is this effective? Ethical? What's your evaluation of this ad? Josh, what do you think about this ad? Is it effective or ethical?
I don't think it's ethical because it's like showing him being happy like with all the war stuff and all the bad things going on, even though he probably isn't.
Okay, so it's kind of like, it's taking these pictures out of context, right, and then pairing it with these other things, which is probably not the truth.
Yeah.
Maddie?
Yeah, I don't think it's ethical because literally the whole time he's just trashing on Humphrey.
Yeah. Which, do we call these kind of, does anyone know what we call these kind of ads where they're trashing the other character? Smear campaigns, right? So they're smear ads where they're like, this person sucks and here's why, right? So it feels kind of like unethical. I had someone first period who said that like in politics she likes it better, and like I feel the same way when a person isn't smearing someone else and like just talking about what they're doing well, because like I don't want to know what they're doing wrong, I want to know what you're gonna do right. And I feel like my mom always said that growing up, like, don't worry about what other people are doing wrong, you just keep doing what you need to be doing, right? And I was like, okay, Mom, whatever, but they suck. And she's like, that's not an excuse for you to sink to their level, right? And I feel like these are kind of like that, where they're like, he's doing this, so pick me, I'm better, right? So they kind of feel that way. Do you think it's effective? Like, what is the purpose of this ad?
I think the purpose is to just sway people's opinions about Humphrey. It definitely, at least for me when I watched it, it played to my emotions. I was like, oh, that's weird, that's creepy, I didn't like it. And so I feel like if I was voting during this time period, it would make me think, be like,
Yeah.
how much does he really care?
Yeah, how much does he care about
About
you? So,
this.
purpose to get you to not like Humphrey and to vote instead for Nixon. Graham, did you want to add to that? Like,
No,
pretty much sums up what you're saying. So, is it effective? Does it make you want to vote for Nixon? How many of you would vote for Nixon after having seen this ad? The other guy. How many of you would vote for this guy, this Humphrey guy?
I don't know.
You would vote for this guy?
I don't know.
Okay, maybe there's not enough information, right? But they certainly haven't given us facts and things about like who would do better. They're just kind of associating these bad vibes with them. So maybe as a consumed informer, you would be like, this is not very effective. Mary?
I guess also just like considering the time period where they couldn't like just look up their policies on like the Google or whatever, like the few things you really get to see of them, if it's one that makes you like nervous and uncomfortable or like concerned, you probably wouldn't go for it because you don't have much else to work with.
Okay. So maybe considering the time, this would have been more effective, whereas we could be like, okay, but really what are they about? And we could just go Google it. Yeah. Which side of the rhetorical triangle do you think that they are leaning most heavily on in this ad? Is this an ethical appeal, a logical appeal, or an emotional appeal?
Emotion.
Emotional, right? Specifically, which emotion?
Fear.
Fear. They're making you afraid. Okay. Okay, let's look at another ad. This is a couple years earlier. It's Johnson versus Goldwater. I believe Goldwater this was the last time that Utah voted Democratic because Goldwater was crazy. He wanted to do some crazy stuff. So we're gonna add, there's two ads that are kind of along the same line, so we're gonna watch both of them, but we'll start with one, obviously. Then we'll do the other one. Really good times. Okay, so again, just kind of an initial, what do you notice, what choices are being made, what's the purpose?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 6, 8, 9,
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. These are the stakes. To make a world in which all of God's children can live, or to go into the dark, we must either love each other or we must die.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
Alright, so initial impressions.
That was dark.
Anyone else feel like that escalated quickly? Like, whoa, very dark. Okay, what is the purpose of this ad? I mean, I know the purpose, but I want to know if you know the purpose. So what is the purpose of this ad? Marahi, what's the purpose of this ad?
To vote for, I didn't listen to the name, to vote for him.
For Johnson?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Cool. So, how are they accomplishing that purpose? What are choices you notice being made in this ad? Maddie?
It like starts off with like a little girl. You're like, oh, so cute. And all of a sudden, like, atomic bomb.
Yeah.
Like it makes you like sad. You're like, oh. You know?
Yeah. So we have this tiny little girl, right? Very which side of the triangle by using a tiny human. Hey, that's right, pathos, where we're looking at like, oh, we care about this little girl, we want to protect her, and she's so freaking cute, right? She can't even count right, like that's pretty cute. I don't know why, but it just is, right? And then, atomic bomb. Okay, what do we call that when we take two things that are opposite, we put them side by side? Juxtaposition, right? So there's this juxtaposition between the cute little girl and this bomb. Okay, why do we do that in this ad? What's the implication there? Yes,
I
right.
think it kind of just shows like how the future will look for the little girl based off of who you vote now.
Yeah, right? Like as Americans, we care about the next generation, we care about our children, and like if you vote for Goldwater, what will happen? They will all get blown up because of his nuclear stuff, okay? And the other choices you notice being made. Okay, let's watch it again. Like really dig into, okay, what are they showing? What are the words that you hear? So we talked a lot about what like the images were, right? Pay attention to what is being said this time around. Besides like miscounting.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 6, 8, 9,
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. These are the stakes. To make a world in which all of God's children can live, or to go into the dark. We must either love each other, or we must die.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
Okay, what do you notice about words? Yeah, Marathi.
It says these are the stakes.
Okay.
Like right after.
Yeah.
So,
What does that mean? Why
it's
is
just
that?
kind of saying like this is exactly what's gonna happen if you don't vote for Johnson.
Right? Yeah. Again, it seems like that escalated quickly, but this is what will happen if you don't do that. That invokes what feeling in the audience?
Fear.
Fear, right? And pressure to do that. Because we don't want our little children to die. What else do you guys notice?
He said we must either love each other or we must die. Like that's a little like extreme.
You're like, again,
After he just blew up a little girl or whatever. Not really, but you know.
everything in here is pretty extreme. It's like
Mm-hmm.
cute little girl with birds chirping in the background and flower and all the natural world, or destruction. We must either unite and come together under God, right? Or we must die. What is that again? Take one thing that's very unlike the other.
Juxtaposition.
Juxtaposition, right? So even verbally, we've got that juxtaposition repeating. I am not sure who is talking there. I think it could either be Johnson or just someone on his campaign, right? But thinking about like these high stakes, it again invokes that fear. Also by referencing God, what does that do? What are they hoping to accomplish by being like,
Appeal to their emotional side too, because people are like, especially at this time, people, you know, didn't want to disappoint God. And like,
for sure, right? That is pathos has to do with the audience's beliefs, right? And also their feelings. So definitely that fear side, but also their beliefs at this time. America was very Christian, right? Lots of people went to church. Most people believed in God. And so by saying associating picking Johnson with uniting under God, that feels very happy and safe. And that goes with what they're thinking versus dead, right? So I just think that those are this is very extreme, this act. Okay, let's watch another one. This one's kind of similar. It's also worse in some ways.
Do you know what people used to do? They used to explode atomic bombs in the air. Now children should have lots of vitamin A and calcium, but they shouldn't have any strontium-90 or cesium-137. These things come from atomic bombs, and they're radioactive. They can make you die. Do you know what people finally did? They got together and signed a nuclear test ban treaty, and then the radioactive poison started to go away. But now, there's a man who wants to be president of the United States, and he doesn't like this treaty. He fought against it. He even voted against it. He wants to go on testing more bombs. His name is Barry Goldwater, and if he's elected, they might start testing all over again.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
Okay, what do you notice in this one?
Is that the same thing as the last video, saying the stakes are too high?
Yeah.
Don't risk it, stuff like that.
Don't risk it, right? Stakes are too high. That's kind of his motto, right? Every president kind of has a motto. Obama's was like change, right? Like a time for a change. Or he talked a lot about hope. Trump's make America great again, right? So like everyone's kind of got like a slogan. So theirs is like the stake is too high. So we hear that again here. What else? What other choices? Graham, what are some choices you noticed being made in this ad?
Like it shows like a cute little girl just like eating ice cream, and it's talking about all this terrible things happening.
Yeah, right? And what does the voice sound like telling her these things?
The voice, I don't know, it's kind of creepily like happy, kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, kind of almost sounds like it's a female, right? So it's like almost like this mother being like, let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
Da cesium and all of these bombs. But it's like but you might die, right? Like kind of like a weird, again, like pairing, a weird juxtaposition between how the voice sounds, the picture that you're seeing of this cute little girl, and then the terrible atrocities that will happen if you vote for Goldwater. Okay. Are these ads ethical? What do you think?
No.
No. Okay, why?
Because it doesn't have like a lot of facts or proof. It doesn't have any evidence as to like if Goldwater has said anything about like testing again.
Yeah, they don't have a ton of facts, not a lot of proof. Mostly it's just working on which side of the rhetorical triangle?
Emotional.
Emotional appeal, right? Effective? Yeah. Yeah, somewhat effective. We want to protect the tiny humans. We don't want to blow up and die. So, okay, the last one, I think I screwed up on your paper and it says 1992, but I want you to change it to, like, well, you don't have to. If you don't change it, I might take off points. But it's actually 1964, or sorry, 1960. This is President Kennedy, and it's a jingle, so that is fun. It's going to be stuck in your head all day. And this is the first campaign where, like, the presidential candidates were on TV. So before this, no one really had like TV, like they had pictures of them, but it wasn't like they were on TV. Okay, cool. So broad overview. What do you notice? And we'll talk about some choices.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know and young enough to do. Well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you'll cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy,
Isn't that fun? Okay, what choices do you notice being made here? Overall initial impressions.
Well, this was way more positive than the last few.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
pretty cheerful.
Pretty cheerful, right? What else?
Makes it like a repetitive, catchy song that's stuck in your head.
Okay, why would that be good?
So then you're always thinking about him and like you'll like want to vote for him again.
Yeah, right, like you'll be thinking about it more, and it's like a happy vibe, so you're like associating those together with that name, Kennedy, and hitting that over and over and over again. What else do you guys notice?
And it's kind of like a happy song.
Yeah, definitely happy.
So it could go, like it's associating Kennedy in your mind with like good.
Yeah.
Just like natural.
Good. Not a lot of words, but a few, right? And most of it is like positive stuff. So on this next go around, I want you to pay attention to what is being said, but also what images they're choosing to portray. They're pretty quick, right? But they're making choices about what pictures they're showing and who they're showing. So pay attention to that on this second go around.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know and young enough to do. Well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you'll cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Okay, what do we notice on the second go around? Yeah, Marahi.
In the song, it's not just one person, it's a bunch of different voices saying stuff for Kennedy and showing like what he can do for America.
Okay, good. So it's getting different viewpoints. He's not going to just represent one person, but there's all of these different people who are for him. Where else do we see that?
In some of the pictures, just always happy, smiling crowds. There's no like riots or anything.
Yeah.
You can see at least.
So there are a lot of different people, and they're happy because they're voting for Kennedy, right? You've got women, you've got people who are working in factories, you've got old people, you've got black people, you've got kind of a lot of these marginalized groups, right? And they're all happy and perky and voting for Kennedy. So Kennedy's going to be someone who unites you, right? And the other images you noticed that were interesting or important, Lillian.
The very last image is of him and his family.
Yeah. So why is that? Why does he put that there?
It's very relatable. A lot of adults during this time had large families, and so having someone who is, you can tell, is like kind enough to have a family, it makes them feel more relatable and real.
Yeah, he's a family man, right? That's a very American value. Like, oh, look at him. Yeah, I want that. That's relatable. It's nice. I just think it's funny. I can't imagine people like showing their family at the end of a campaign these days. Like that would be like the whole thing is kind of weird, right? Anything else you noticed? Did you notice that they show like some state names? There's like Oregon and then like very slightly like Michigan. That was kind of harder to notice. Like that, like why would they do that? Why would they show states in the middle of this? That seems weird. You're watching this ad, and Utah shows on the page. What does that do for you?
Like there's more important states, like if you already know there's states that it's obviously going to get this swing states or states that are, he's not sure, then he wants to target those to make it on his side.
Yeah, right? So like he's thinking probably about those swing states. I think Oregon in this case was one of those. I think Michigan might have been too. Like, but he's like, look, I am aware of you, right? I'm putting you on there. Also, you've got this Kennedy for me, like, right? And like, if Oregon's on there, you're like, oh, are all of my fellow Oregonians voting for him? I better vote for him. Like, they like him, right? So it just kind of puts him on his radar, and he's like, look, I see you, and people like you are voting for me, okay? What about that last screen where it's like Xing in, like Kennedy, like it makes like an X? Why do that? What's in the middle of the X?
Him.
Him, right? So X But yeah, so even like these subtle little things like, look, vote for him, and it's like very fun and like marchy. Okay. Effective, ethical.
I think it's effective. Ethical.
Yeah.
Probably not. Kind of. Yeah.
I mean, like, at least he's not smearing the other guy. Although he does say he's like someone who's like has enough experience but isn't too old to try new things. Maybe a little dig at the other guy, like this guy's ancient, and Kennedy's like young new blood, right? But like in a nice way, right? Like it's not like this guy sucks, like the other one. So, yeah. Again, not a ton of facts going on, but a little bit more about him. Next time we're gonna watch some more modern ones, so they'll be a little different. These were kind of just like a fun walk down memory lane. So when you're done with this, you'll want to turn it in. And then the only other thing you're working on this week is your annotation / any late work that you owe me. Questions before you're done for the week? Okay, cool. I'll pass out paper towels and stuff.